Are Apple's new M4 chips coming way sooner than expected? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. So whenever Apple announces the next MacBook's coming out, and you just bought a nice shiny MacBook like I did right here, this is actually the M2 I got on sale with the 16 gigs and the 512. You're feeling all happy. And then Apple comes out with the brand new, the M4 chip coming out later this year possibly. We'll get into that in a second. And you feel shafted. Well, I got kind of some advice. Don't get crazy about it. The world doesn't need any more crazy people. I'm about 98% sure of that. And no matter what you buy, when you buy, it's always Murphy's Law that it's going to come out 2 weeks later. They're going to make an announcement like this. So just take a step back, relax, and let's get into what's happening here. All right, so we recently found out that Apple's going to be shipping these M4 chips in computers later this year in 2024. That's crazy because we haven't even seen an M3 chip in the Mac Mini, the Mac Studio, and even the Mac Pro. So what's going on here? And we're going to talk about that. So in the video, I'm going to talk about what actually are the code names for these chips. What are the systems that are going to be getting the chips first? That's kind of key. And you're going to be surprised at which ones might get it first. Stay tuned for that. And then finally, we're going to give you kind of a timeline on when everything's going to ship. And overall, they're saying that everything will be basically out by the end of 2025, but it's going to start as early as the end of 2024. At least that's what they say. So let's get into this. It's going to be exciting. I'm excited about it, even though I just bought one, but that's just the way it goes. All right, so if you watch my kind of weekly podcast, and definitely check it out. I do it on the weekends. I usually have a beer with me. We relax, and I'm going to do it live eventually. I'll show you kind of a picture here, but watch that. I do usually do those on either Fridays or Saturdays. Definitely subscribe if you can for that. But long story short, I touched on this. It says Microsoft thinks ARM Windows laptops will eclipse M3 MacBook Air performance this year. Here's the article right here. It's kind of a funny article because it says the MacBook Air. It doesn't say the MacBook Pros that's kind of the base M3 chip, but still, it's worth a grain of salt. Take it with whatever it's worth, but at least it's something. It says Microsoft is so confident these new Qualcomm chips that it's planning a number of demos that will show how the processors will be faster than the M3 Air. Again, it's the M3 Air, but it's at CPU tasks and AI acceleration and even app emulation. So I talked about this last time on that. All right, and then the report goes on to say Microsoft's upcoming laptops will be powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite processors. Even after years of failed promises from Qualcomm, it says Microsoft has faith that this will be the year that Qualcomm surpasses Apple Silicon. But think about it for a second. It's the MacBook Air they're going after, not the Pros and stuff. Take it with a grain of salt. So anyways, I think this is good because what it's going to do then is Apple then sees this coming. They say, hey, they don't want to give Microsoft any time in the sun, especially with this new AI stuff coming out. And so Microsoft did that. So now what's going to happen is Apple's going to keep pushing and pushing. And that's why I think we're getting these M4 chips earlier than we thought they were coming. Basically later in 2024, which is actually a good thing. So take this, even though they might even come and bring some competition in, it's actually good. All right, let's talk about Mark Gurman now, because he's the one that actually is thinking this is coming out. He's the guy that has the scoop on all these Apple products and services coming out, and he's right about 60% of the time. So he's got a huge career on this, being right about 60% of the time, but he's the one that thinks these chips are coming out later this year. But it's crazy to me. So you'd think with Apple's $1 trillion nest egg, right? $1 trillion, they could follow this guy around. He has to go get an Egg McMuffin or a coffee or something, and they could figure out where his sources are coming from. Supposedly they like to catch these people, but for some reason with the trillions of dollars that Apple has, maybe multi-billion, maybe hundreds of billions, still, they could get a small investigative team to follow this guy around and figure out what his sources are. If Angela Lansbury, from Murder, She Wrote, can solve 250 murders, you would think that Apple could solve this. But at the end of the day, they still can't figure out where he's getting his information from, and he's still right, I guess, most of the time. All right, so Mark Gurman's saying a couple things here. He's saying it's launching 3 basic chips, and the first one is going to be the Donan, D-O-N-A-N, stupid name, but will be used for the entry-level MacBook Pro, the MacBook Airs, and the entry-level Mac Mini. So that's going to be the Donan chip, and that's really going to be just the straight M4 chip, more or less. And then the next chip is going to be, they codenamed it the Brava chip, and I believe this is going to be the M4 Pro. So this is going to be for the MacBook, the kind of the advanced more MacBook Pros or the higher level MacBook Pros. And then also, I guess, the Mac Mini Pro version of it. So it's going to be really the M4 chip there with the Pro designation. And then the third variation is going to be the Hydra chip, and that's going to be Hydra. And so it says here it's designed for the Mac Pro, which suggests that it's going to be an Ultra or an Extreme type chip. So this is going to be the chip that's going to be the one that they're kind of redesigning a lot more than it used to be with the Ultra chips, and we'll get into that in a second. It is saying that the M4 Hydra chips are going to have up to 512 gigabytes of unified memory on it, which is kind of crazy, right? Right now, I think it can only go up to the M series chips can only go up to 192 gigabytes. Now, before with Intel, it was up to, I think, 1.5 gigabytes, which was a ton of RAM, but now it can go up to 512, I think, with the new chip, and I can only imagine how fast that's going to be on these M4 processors with that much RAM. But, the question is, how much is this going to cost? And then Mark Gurman goes on to say that the M4 chips will be built on the same 3nm process as the M3 chips, but Apple's supplier will likely use an improved version of the 3nm process to boost its performance and power efficiency, all right? So it says the M3s were kind of rushed out, and it wasn't built on a true 3nm process. It had to do some kind of intermediate things to get it out, but they wanted to be first with 3nm. And so Apple plans to add a much improved neural engine that has increased number of cores for AI tasks. So now this is going to be the true 3nm chips they're coming out with on these new chips, and I think that's why Apple's really kind of trying to speed up the game here. So the one thing they're doing here, as you know, is they're trying to get a jump on AI, right? Everyone's coming out with this AI stuff. They want these new chips that are going to perform way better with AI tasks, Siri and everything else. Now, you know how I feel about AI. I hate it, actually, especially in 5 years from now. Obviously, initially, it's going to help me create my videos better, make things easier for me. And 5 years from now, it's going to make, basically clone me and make the videos for me, and I won't even be anywhere to be seen. That's the way I feel about AI. But anyways, you get the idea. It's coming no matter if we like it or not. So get ready. These chips are made for AI. All right, so what are the Macs coming out first, and when do we expect them to be shipped? Let's go over this list over here. Number one is going to be the low-end 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M4 coming out around the end of 2024. So that's going to be the low-end MacBook Pro, the one that actually hopefully will ship with more than 8 gigs of RAM, but it probably won't. That's number one. Number two is a 24-inch iMac with the M4, also expected around the end of the year. So this is kind of weird because this just came out with the M3, and they're going to skip this ahead to the M4 right away, which makes little sense to me. But they have that listed as number two, this iMac over here, which would be great because I would love an M4 in it, but still, that just seems odd. Then it says number three is the new 14 and 16-inch high-end MacBook Pros with the M4 Pro Max chips, due between the end of 2024 and early 2025. So that's going to be number three, the higher end MacBook Pros. That makes a little bit more sense. Number four is a Mac Mini with both M4 and M4 Pro configurations. That's coming between the end of 2024 and the very beginning of 2025. I would have thought that they're coming out with an M3 version of that. Maybe they're going to skip it. We'll talk about that in a second. The fifth one is the new 13 and 15-inch MacBook Airs slated for spring 2025. Again, those came out not too long ago, the M3s, so that makes a little bit more sense. Let me just see here. It says they were slated for the spring, so we're talking maybe April, maybe about a year from now. And then a Mac Studio with the high-end M4 chip, that Hydra chip, that's coming out in the middle of 2025. And that would actually be a Mac Studio that would be something that a lot of people would like for video editing and stuff like that. But the crazy thing here is it says number 7 is the Mac Pro with the M4 Ultra chip. And it's saying that due in the second half of 2025, so later 2025, finally they're going to be coming out with that. That's kind of interesting because we've been waiting so long for a new one to come out. I don't know if Apple's putting a lot of time into it. So what they're saying basically is they're going to be skipping possibly the Mac Studio with the M3 and the Mac Pro with the M3 and maybe even the Mac Mini. But the reason for this is because these new processors on the higher end processors are going to have basically getting rid of all the efficiency cores and only have performance cores. I guess Apple finally realized that, and when you have plugged in devices like that, power, I guess if you draw a little bit more power for the performance, it's probably worth it because you're not on battery. It's really the laptops and stuff that suffer from the battery. They need to have really long lasting because they're known for that. So they have to have the 20 hours. But when you're plugged in with the Mac Pro, a Mac Studio, a Mac Mini, you don't need that. So get rid of those efficiency cores. You want a lot of performance cores there. And I think that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so the M4s are coming whether we like it or not. Even if you bought a brand new computer like I did here recently, I'm probably going to hand my money over to Apple willingly like an idiot, but it's for my channel because I'm actually kind of cheap. So if it wasn't for my channel, I think I'd be keeping this for 4 to 5 more years at least. But with my channel, these M4s are just going to kind of burn a hole in my pocket. I guess we got to look at the bright side. So if you have an old Mac like I have here, they're not made for AI as much as the new ones will be. And if you hate AI like I do, it's probably actually a good thing. So Apple can't push as much AI at me as if I got an M4. That's the bright side of it. And civilization will last a little bit longer for you if you have an older Mac. If you get the new ones, you're going to be hearing all this stuff coming at you with the AI. And I just don't think it's going to be good overall. Okay, let's wrap up the video. Now, obviously, you got the timeline for the M4 chips. Definitely subscribe to my channel if you can. I do a ton of videos. I think I do 2 to 3 a week at least, and I have over 650 videos online right now. And I do them all about Apple services, and all different tech products, including hard drives, SSD, hubs, monitors, you name it. So subscribe if you can. I also have that podcast I'm going to be doing weekly or semi-weekly, where I have a beer and just sit back and relax and talk about a whole bunch of Apple stories with you. So hopefully you guys can support me and subscribe and click the like button. We'll talk to you in a couple days. Peace.